Welcome to the first coding challenge of this section. Now here in this challenge, Julie and Kate are doing a study on dogs. And so each of them asked 5 dog owners about their dog's age. And then they stored the data into an array, and that's one array for each of them. So now, and in this study, they are interested in knowing whether each of these dogs is an adult or a puppy. And the rule is that a dog is an adult if it is at least 3 years old. That is here, if it is at least 3 years old. And then it is a puppy if it is less than 3 years old. And by the way, the test data here, the arrays for it is down here. So test data 1 and test data 2. So your task is to create a function called check dogs. Here this is create a function check dogs and which accepts 2 arrays of dogs ages, and that is dogs Julia and dogs Kate, and does the following things. We need to do all these things. So first, Julia found out that the owners of the first and the last 2 dogs actually have cats, not dogs. So create a shallow copy of Julia's array and remove the cat ages from the copied array. And then here what we have to do here is to create a shallow copy of Julia's array, and then we need to remove cat ages from the copied array. And so you should copy it because it is a bad practice to mutate the parameters or the arguments of a function. Then second one is a create an array with both Julie's the corrected data, and then for each of these dogs, so simply log to the console whether it is a adult with a string like this or a puppy and then with a string like this. And then the fourth one is just run the function for both test data sets. And the hint is use tools from all the lectures in this section so far. Now let's pause the video and try it on yourself. Once done with the code, let's back to the video. Now let's do this. Here write const. I'm giving check dogs, that is equal function. And then here we have to accept the dogs from Julia. So the first one is the dogs Julia. And then the next one is dogs Kate. Now let's call the test data. Check dogs. Here we have the Julia's data, this one in test 1 data. So there is no need to store them in a separate variables. I just call this function here. Let's write this one. Paste. Now I want to give the Kates. Now here we need to create a shallow copy of dogs Julia. So further write const, and so that we can then remove some elements from there. Let's write here dogs Julia corrected, that is equal, use slice method here, dogs Julia dot slice, and then here I am using the method and not the spread operator. Now I will simply remove some elements from there. So let's write here dogs Julia corrected dot splice using the splice method. So it tells us that the first and last 2 dogs actually have cats, not dogs. So that is the first and last 2 dogs are not valid basically. So the first element number is 0, and then we want to remove the 1. So and then next dogs Julia corrected dot splice, and then the last 2 which is -2. Now let's take a look here. Simply write console.log, write dogs Julia corrected. Now let's reload. See here this in console. You have that 5, 2. Here you got the result that 5, 2, and then here you see that Julia's data is this, and in this the first one and the last two are gone. Now we will also do this in a different way, which is to simply copy the correct data from the original using the slice method. So that is, let's write here docs Julia dot slice method. So starting here from the second one, that is 1, and then all the way to the third one. So right, give 3. And so now here this will also give us the same result. But in this case, I just wanted to use the splice method. And in fact, I wanted you to use the splice method as well. So that's why I gave you the task like that. Anyway, we don't need this here anymore. Let's comment this one. And then we don't need this one. Let's just cut it. Or else place this also in comments. Let's now simply create a new variable with both these dogs. So write here const, write dogs, that is equal. So here we could use the spread operator, that is dogs Julia corrected. Let's do everything with array methods and then we use the concat method. So that is dot concat. And then now here we want to join the corrected Julia dogs with dogs Kate. And that is here dogs Kate. Now let's log this into console. Console.log dogs. Now let's see the result that we have added the dogs Kate values data to this corrected Julia's dogs. And then the next one we need to create basically this string. Now let's loop over this array dogs dot per each and then function. Now we need actually the current element and also the index. So write current element dog and index I. And that is because here is the number that is 1 and dog number 1 is it is going to go all the way to 7. So that's why let's check out our rule. Here a dog is an adult if he is at least 3 years old. So if the dog is greater than or equal 3. So for that let's write here if dog is greater than or equal 3. Then log a string like this one. Then write here console.log dog number 1. So let's replace this one dollar and I plus 1. It will give our number and is here the dog itself the age 5 years. So for that let's write here dog. And then if it is greater than or equal 3. So it is not equal 3 else write here console.log. Take this data. Dog number 2 is still puppy. So that is this one we need to replace. I plus 1. Now I hope that we are done with the code. Let's reload. Give it a save and reload. See here we have the dog number 1 is an adult and is 5 years old. Dog number 2 is still a puppy. So here we see that first the value is 5. So dog number 1 is an adult that is 5 years old and the dog number 2 is still a puppy because it is 2 years. And now the dog number 3 is an adult and is 4 years old. Now it is 4. And the dog number 4 is still a puppy. And now it is based on this dog is greater than or equal 3. If greater than or equal 3, it will give an adult. And if is less than 3, it is puppy. So dog number 5 is an adult and is 15 years old and also 8 years old and 3 years old. Now we got the correct solution, and now let's try for this case test data too. So let's replace these values. Give this one Julius. Let's copy the second one, paste. Now let's reload. See here we have that here in this array less than 3, that is only one, so that is puppy, and remaining all are showing adults. So it is working now perfectly. So with this our challenge is completed. So this is all about the session. See you in the next one. Thank you.